Well, I think I'm actually going to say good morning because I've looked at the numbers, put a lot of time in yesterday at looking at the situation. And you know what? My support continued to grow throughout the convention. In fact, as Kamala is stepping up for the last time on the podium, I was still gaining more supporters. Basically, the computer says that even though I seem to be somebody unnoticed, that the ratio that I am both forward moving and gaining people's interest means that I haven't peaked yet. My momentum is still going. That's a big item. That's an encouraging item because when other people are looking at their campaigns capping out, their opportunities, well, going through very serious changes, you could say. And a lot of that we know has to do with somebody's perception or what's actually happening with support, with people who like you or your ideas or whatever. But the statistic with me is more forward moving than the other candidates. Of course, with me, there's also other people that like what I'm doing. There's other reasons that I'm appealing to some people, because some people are just interested in looking at the material. There's other people, frankly, they're afraid. They're afraid to be associated with having anybody else know that they look at my material. So I got people that are still finding me that lost track of me long time back, that are now finding me again, and this is because of all the violence, the destruction. So I've got a lot of people out there that are interested in seeing the different issues that I have move forward. And some people in life, they feel that the government is all evil, and they're afraid. They just don't want to get chewed up and spit out by a bunch of people in government that are just memeist. And that's what they feel like they've seen over the course of their life. And they've decided to take care of business and keep themselves in a safe way. And the best way to do that sometimes is become invisible. So we have a lot of people out there that are witnesses to things. They don't want to be punished because they're a witness. And I think, I understand that. So sometimes for some of us, we got to stand up. We got to move forward. We've got to demand what's right. We got to move the future forward. So I am convinced with the way things are going that the way to move forward is to move forward with some legal action. There is going to be legal action coming up, probably on the large size, dealing with an array of issues. We've got the sheer fact that we've got people who are criminals who have rigged elections out of California. Shirley Weber, Julie Sue, Kamala Harris, Rob Baton, where they don't want to participate. They have shirked their constitutional responsibilities. They have violated their oath to the Constitution of the United States. So when confronted with the evidence, and we can look at one of the smallest items and say, hey, right here, COVID shut down, Congress says everybody gets compensated. Everybody gets compensated. I go to get my compensation, and I got a bunch of people blacklisting me. And the damage that they caused became a huge domino effect. The dereliction of duty while under fire is something interesting, except they weren't the ones under fire. I was the ones under fire. And their cowardly dereliction of duty to supply resources that Congress ordered is absolutely inexcusable. Now, that having been said, I'm going to take a break for a moment. I'm going to come back and I want to talk about Arkansas, water, and how rich the people of Arkansas are. And I want to snap them out of this so-called belief system that would seem like people think that there should be poverty in Arkansas. I'm going to destroy poverty in Arkansas. Okay. Back again here. Going to destroy poverty in Arkansas. Arkansas is going to have 24/7 services. Super AI services. Now, I'm going to tell you, no matter how many times I keep trying to build archives and people keep destroying them, I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to let a little thing like 18 broadcast mobile RV archive units getting destroyed just be the end of things. That ain't going to happen. There's going to be a lot of legal action coming down over that. Got people rigging elections in the process of doing that, stopping my candidacy startup. In LA, if you can imagine, 12 RV units with the candidate's name on the side and links for websites. That's 1 million people a day. I've been working with computers doing the analytics of what happened over that situation. I mean, there's nothing like getting electronically kidnapped in your life. Electronically kidnapped, and that's what the state of California did. They electronically kidnapped me. They shut down productivity. I'm going to restore productivity. So the computer says that I missed 1 million people a day. So literally hundreds of millions of people, many of them the same, of course, would have been seeing these mobile archives every day. And it wouldn't have been as expensive as some people might have thought. To run those archive units. Broadcast Wi-Fi's 5,000, 10,000 feet. Had these little designs. I was going to do some drones with some Pringle cans. So the drones would come up off the roof of the RV and they could fly out. And they were basically controlled by AI. And they could massively extend the distance. 7 miles in any direction. It's a 14-mile radius. Each one of those units would have been capable of servicing about 1,000 people at any given moment. Yep, I guess some people might have had to wait if I decided to do the Coliseum. But there's other methods. Now the main archive system basically was also located in the units. I was in the process of acquiring some other property. I used to have about a little over 8 acres out in Greenbrier, Arkansas. And that would have worked fairly nice as the main serving center. But I was looking around for other stuff, other locations, and unfortunate things happen. Chemical plant blows up. Everything inundated and permeated with 3,400 types of chemicals. That's another hard situation I was already dealing with when the electronic kidnapping antics of California come into play, and Kamala Harris wouldn't do her job and prosecute the parties responsible for the illegal activity. A horrible, cowardly action of dereliction of duty. But I still keep fighting. And we still keep having criminals repeatedly coming at and attacking archives. It's amazing. And the cowardly behavior of so many people in government. The fact that a lot of the attacks basically were people in government violating the Constitution of the United States in many ways. And all of this was holding back, moving forward, the ideas of bringing new high-speed computers that effectively would be a nationwide item. As a candidate, as a president, there will be 24/7 services. As a candidate, I was going to bring 24/7 services online as though they had never been seen before. But I have to keep coming under attack, and these people are criminals. These people have to be punished for what they have done. Shirley Weber, Julie Sue, Kamala Harris, Robert Bertan, these people are criminals. Criminals against humanity. Attacking knowledge. That's a crime against humanity. That's defined by the Constitution as one of the most horrific crimes that anybody could ever commit against anyone. Punishment is the death penalty. Got a mandatory death penalty. And this is something that people keep missing. These people keep thinking they can reinvent the wheel, that they can bring out a pen and just run the pen and just completely undo the entire Constitution of the United States. No, that's not going to happen. Those rules were put there for a reason by our forefathers, so that we wouldn't lose control of government, so we wouldn't have a caste system, so we wouldn't have a bunch of oligarchs, so we wouldn't have a bunch of kings just ruling evilly over us. It's about freedom. And we have to restore the Constitution. And in so doing that, if we look back here at Arkansas again, Arkansas has one thing in abundance that's undeniable: more water than it needs. And that makes every Arkansan rich. The plan I have should work very nicely, bringing a minimum of $12,000 a year to every citizen. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to take the water and sell it to people who want to buy it. Like people that are in desert areas that are west of the river. And there are other states that are going to want in on this. This is likely to go all the way up clear into Canada. As there is a simplicity and understanding that when the storms come, we know days ahead of time. Large storms are coming and they're going to drop a lot of water, and a lot of that water we're not going to need. So that means we have to work hard to figure out how to facilitate all that extra water, because that's what we want to capture to sell. The stuff we just don't need. So that means we got to figure out places to put areas to hold water. We got to make deals with other states. We got to sit down at the table and talk about more than this vision, about how we just get this done. Just get it done. Then we're going to be working with, obviously, a whole lot of piping. A lot of pipes. We're going to be working with high-speed pumps. Because when the water starts coming down and filling everything up, we want to work with high-speed movement of that water. If we do that, we will not need areas as large to hold the water, because we're going to keep it moving. Obviously, this is still very, very large. This is truly a mega project. But it's liquid assets. Every time that big storm comes in and rains, it's literally going to be converted into cash, into gold. It's like gold falling from the sky. It's something you don't need, and it's constantly being gifted. So getting a harvesting system, that's the plan. Now, a lot of this is going to use AI computers to help with the design. There's going to be a lot of engineering firms that are going to want in on this project. It's probably going to have, frankly, every pipe company in the country somehow participating. It's going to bring all these companies to max production. It's going to take 10 years to get this project done. You'll see it. Most of you will see it. Your kids will definitely see it. And your grandkids, well, your grandkids are going to have a whole new life, basically their whole life. Because in 10 years, they begin for sure to begin being the recipients of the project. Now, there's a lot of other things I'm going to restore into Arkansas of the plan that I had. I'm going to restore my plan. There's going to be massive archiving all over Arkansas. It's actually smaller than a lot of people would think. It's amazing how much knowledge you can put on drives in a very small space. I mean, basically in a closet you can put a whole lot of drives and a whole lot of computers, and it's amazing how much knowledge you can put in it. Hard drive technology, chip drive technology has changed over the course of the last 25 years. It's changed a whole lot. You know, one of my original visions and ideas was basically to build an archive and allow people to join the archive for as little as $1 a year. I was going to get people to say, hey, look, here's what you do. We'll make you a deal. You're going to pay for a drive, and guess what? It's your drive. It's your drive. If you decide you want your drive back, we can mail it to you. You can come down and get it. That was the idea. That really, really was the idea. And that way, you would have a way to archive material of important facts, lawsuits, legal cases, family photographs, whatever it is. Now, I know a lot of people use Google and other companies, but the way I wanted to do it with the MindGuard system was it's a little bit different filing. If you lose your account records, there is always a method to get back a hold of your data, and your data would never, ever be deleted. Permanent archiving. It's a very important concept, permanent archiving, because it really, in many ways, does not exist. It's part of the vision. It's part of what makes the entire archive concept work, in my view. Now, I did a lot of computers. I was getting lots of computers. I was fixing them up. I'd take them down to the little auctions, go to the Conway Red Barn, Mayflower, all over the different places. And I just sell those pretty much regardless of laws. And the auctioneers handled the paperwork, and they handled the taxes, so the tax man got covered. In fact, kind of funny in a way, because the way it worked out, I had to pay taxes to get a hold of the material, and then the material would be sold at auction. So I had an accountant look at that, and he says, hey, you're double paying your taxes. You're owed a refund. You're owed a refund. And I'll tell you, it really bites when you have people destroy your paperwork. When you end up having someone do an illegal impound on you, and you call up the IRS and say, hey, I'm fighting these people, but I need to get the paperwork out of there. My tax records are there, everything. And the IRS says, well, really? And the IRS investigates and says, I don't believe this. They call you back and says, I don't believe this. These people are stealing your records. They have no right to do that. There's nothing like getting a letter from the IRS that says, don't worry about paying your taxes. We just verified that these people have done something illegal. Now, of course, there's a little problem with, oh, yeah, by the way, I really kind of needed that refund. You know, when you got a refund coming over 3 years at around $27,000 and you're going to file a multi-year return, it really hurts when you don't get that. When you're running a nonprofit the way I would run it, because I ran everything close to the vest, I didn't get a salary. There was no salary. And in many states, they've changed laws. You're not even allowed to do what I did. I would be cheating myself. Imagine that. In California, it's illegal. You cannot have a nonprofit and not pay people that work. That means you can't volunteer. You're allowed to volunteer 4 hours a week. 4 hours a week is the way that works. That was a fairly recent change in California. So as I would go from different state to different state, going about my business, which was dealing with, a lot of it would be pop in and look at different auctions. I would then find that I'd keep getting caught up in these little nightmares, these ridiculous situations involving the criminal activity of government employees. Again, this is almost exclusively coming out of California. It's just amazing the massive unconstitutional behavior that would constantly come out of California. Just amazing. So anyhow, there's a lot more that's going to be happening. There's a lot more that's in the archive I haven't talked about. I'm talking about the campaign. Most people are looking at the campaign. But as it is right now, when you find my main setup, it's Crypty World that is sponsoring everything. Kind of funny that a gaming company that I was starting, still starting, is sponsoring a presidential campaign because of massive AI models. Because part of the campaign was going to be all about showing people modeling, showing people what it looked like to do real-time strategy gaming, where we're showing you models of how cities work, models of how economies work. There's going to be some fun stuff in there too. And the idea behind Crypty World was basically, it's something I had chipped away on for decades, that I was going to be doing gaming with that. And at one point in time, we were doing gaming in Arkansas as Den E Gaming. Den E Gaming. And basically we would sometimes sponsor something, like at the library or whatever, you know, put out some ads that way. We even had breathing apparatuses. You know, if you were on oxygen and you wanted to come down and do gaming, you didn't have to worry about your bottle running out. We had oxygen machines for you. And so there was medical equipment, everything. The way the MindGuard system worked is basically, it's amazing. You would get a hold of stuff because there would be these fluctuations, seasonal fluctuations from businesses and government that would be auctioning things off. And this is how I was getting a hold of the archive equipment. A lot of the archive equipment was actually needed for legal archive work. In some ways, that's how it started many, many years ago. Originally, I started an archive concept that was heavily civil rights because I was pissed off at the way things were going. And I decided, okay, I'm going to build an archive. Well, it wasn't long before I decided to say, I'm going to move that archive to Arkansas. So I moved the archive to Arkansas. And the archive grew in many different ways, you know. I did a lot of heavy personal research. I acquired an awful lot of knowledge. When you go to a bankruptcy auction and you go through and everybody's bidding on these different corners of the building and stuff, hope y'all find this interesting and not boring, but basically you end up, everyone's buying the furniture, they're buying this and that, and you get to the point where you get to the data areas, and you have boxes and boxes of data and some computers. And some people are going to bid on the computers, but it seemed like nobody wanted the data. So, you know, there it was. There's the DBA, the doing business as data. So I started acquiring this data. And it was just there. And a lot of what was there was programming in boxes that had never been opened, brand new in the box. And this is how I was getting a hold of the programming to put in some of the computers I was assembling and selling at the auction that way. I ended up getting a hold of, one time somebody had bought, I don't remember which business it was, they bought a brand new set of Microsoft server software, 10,000 licenses. 10,000, that's 10,000 computers. And something went wrong. They had a divorce, the economy turned, and they never actually got around to installing the software. There it all was, brand new, boom, in boxes, bang, 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 bang. So, I mean, it just, I acquired enormous amounts of data by doing this. I mean, I would travel around to different states to get to do this sometimes, and I would go to these auctions, and sometimes you would have various businesses that were going bankrupt, and they also had this divorce thing going on. So they were selling stuff regardless of loss, and I was just getting a hold of the data every time I could. Some computers and data I'd go over, they'd have sections. A lot of times they'd have sections of computers that were in pieces, in pallets, were stacked here or there. These were computers that basically needed repair. And a lot of people didn't want those. They just looked at those and saw scrap. And I said, well, I'll go ahead and buy those. So the price was low. Now I'd sit there and put them together, take them to the auction and sell them regardless of loss. Again, I put out like 10,000 computers to people in Arkansas, mostly around Conway, Arkansas, within, I don't know, 60-mile radius or something. And so a lot of people got deals on computers that way. And I'd go down to Young Road, Little Rock. I'd buy ones, twosies, pallets, entire truckloads of scrap. Just depended what was available in the deal. And there would be other things too. You could buy books by the milk crate or by the pallet, law books. You could get programming, sometimes different stuff, all kinds of different things. You just had to see what the conditions of the deal were of what they were selling. A lot of computers you'd get down there, they had removed the programming. They had removed the programming and they had wiped the drives. Or in many cases, they were selling computers with no drives. And you'd have to buy the drives for them. So you'd end up online looking for online auctions and buying hundreds and hundreds of hard drives in one shot and memory chips so that you could end up patching up what was missing from the computers that you needed to get back up and running. And all of this had a translative effect that there were certain systems that were wanted at the time. You know, for the archive multi-drive systems, you put in 5 CDs or 5 DVDs in a drive, and then you have I had boxes. Some of the boxes had seven bays, 7 slots, so you'd have 7 of these multi-drives in there, so 35 CDs at a time. And this is what you would switch out the different data that was on drive. So I'd had somebody basically donate an entire law bank. I think they got it from Arkansas. Arkansas was remodeling something, and they decided to shut down an entire law bank someplace. So an entire law bank ended up somehow going through the recirculation, and I ended up getting a hold of the programming, all the CDs. So I had like 17, 20-some different programming types of master collections. Westlaw, a whole bunch of these other famous names of law libraries. These are complete law libraries. It's everything that had to do with law from beginning to the end up to about 2002. 2002, someplace in there. So it was behind. It was behind the times a couple of years, you know. So, but nonetheless, there was easily, I believe, I had up to 17 complete sets of law sets of different companies that were covering the same material. So I was hooking all this together with the banks, and then hooking all of this into hard drives. So I'd be able to do instant searching, mass searching at a much faster rate. So I was working all these SCSI drives and systems to be able to do this stuff high speed, you know, get down the latency to, 2 nanoseconds, you know. And basically, so that was what was part of what was happening. We were also acquiring different stuff, mixed pallets of equipment. You'd have stuff that would be mixed equipment and scraps sometimes, and it just depended what it was. And you'd hang out. People discount stuff. The longer they discount it. And there'd be fully certified equipment, freshly certified with the certification tags on them, all the techs who'd worked on them and certified them. So I had all different kinds of scientific equipment that ended up coming our way. Spectrographs, all kinds of neat stuff. So that ended up going in the archive, getting a hold of the right tech equipment. And there was some medical equipment I'd set aside to be able to make available. I had ads for a while for scholars that would be interested in using certain equipment. Didn't seem to run into anybody that wanted to basically have the lab. So there was in Arkansas, I had a rather impressive, medical lab. Most of it ended up stored. Had a complete, and it was a hospital. ended up becoming a hospital. It was a heart-lung machine in there. Heart-lung machine, certified, ready to go, but it out of date. Nobody wanted one that old, but it was all certified with the technicians at the time they pulled it out. So it was wrapped in plastic. And then you have your different various tragedies. This stuff having the Deco fire, that was really horrible. But then I'm back and forth between states. I decided that I was going to do more of a mobile access item and start acquiring RVs and storing materials in RVs and setting up the RVs with solar and setting the RVs up to be able to do different things. And pretty much these were all running RVs. Every one of them. There was like one that didn't run. So these were all running RVs, and I customized these things as I could find time to do it. And I was in the process of looking around to get another piece of land in Arkansas. I was communicating with different people on and off about land, and just one of those things. The way you deal with what opportunity is out there. That's how the archive works. I mean, I'm just telling you because you might be curious how it works, because you end up coming into vast quantities of data. And it's kind of weird how it works. Sometimes you end up with computers. I had computers stored that were the very first Apples, the very first Commodores, the very first this and that. And a lot of that stuff was all junk to people at the time. But now all that stuff would be collector's pieces. So, and the value of the data and the assets soared, billions and billions of dollars in assets. Is how it ended up working out. And a lot of the things, again, collectors' things would be worth something, and people would have no idea how hard it is to liquidate something that's rare. Let's say you get a rare painting donated. This painting's worth maybe $30,000, and you're going to say, okay, how do you get rid of it? So you go to Butterfield. They want $3,500 cash up front as a fee. They also want you to have fresh certification, and they want you to have three types of certification. You have to show that the chain of ownership, you have to have it appraised, and you have to have it authenticated. So this is like three different routes. That's all cash. So you have to put all this money up front. You need $4 or $5 grand cash you got to put up front to sell something like that, and then you have to let it sell regardless of loss. You have to ship it and everything. So the way things would work is a lot of times some things would get donated. There's a strange zone. It's a zone where the market fluctuation is, well, the book says it's worth 30 grand, but the market fluctuates and it goes down to 5. Which means that if you go to send this off and you take 5 grand out of your pocket, and you have to sell it regardless, because these people want their fee regardless. They want their $3,500 fee regardless. So this means that if the market fluctuates down to 5 grand, all you do is get your 5 grand back, and basically the item is now gone. It's 100% loss. So the logic of doing that didn't make any sense. So it's like, well, what do you do with it? Well, you just stick it off to the side till you can find a way to deal with it. The idea, hopefully, is that someday somebody would make you an offer and say, gee, can you bring, we're interested in that. Can you bring that to one of the local auctions and just liquidate it? We'll give you a starting bid on it. So if somebody wanted to do something like that, it would then be liquidated and handled through one of the local auctions, and they would handle the paper. They were a lot easier to work with. They'd handle the paperwork, collect the taxes, the whole thing. So that would work. That was the most convenient way to do a lot of stuff. But a lot of the stuff was a lot of labor. I was putting labor in and not getting paid, and pumping stuff out the door, and there was a percentage of equipment that would be left over that was wanted. We had two 24 track systems, mixing boards, decks, everything. 7 camera editing stations. mixing with special mixing boards, boxes, all this stuff, all the goody stuff that you need to make 2 complete vanity studios, sound and video. And that was in storage. That was that was going to be installed in Greenbrier, but unfortunately the property in Greenbrier kept getting underwater because we keep getting flooded. There was too much water that would show up. That was part of the reason that I got this idea to say, gee, there's all this extra water that keeps showing up and we don't need this. Let's figure out a way to do something. And obviously it's an enormous project. But so that gives you a little bit of insight on how the birth of some of the stuff would go. There's other areas where I had labs in Greenbrier, little tiny mini labs, and I did personal research of different natures, and some of it was classified. So I did a lot of research. I always had to do something. So I researched a lot of things, I mean, I was a pretty smart guy. I won my first scholarship at age 14 for electronics. And then I had to deal with a school system that wouldn't allow me to accept my scholarship. I was working on 2 other scholarships. And I basically abandoned them because there was no point. Because the school system was crazy and didn't want to allow me to be able to do these things. And I thought that was rather a strange set of circumstances, considering that other people were doing scholarships. I didn't understand why I was being discriminated. That's the truth. I did not understand why I was being discriminated. But that's another story in itself. So I went to independent study very young. So my IQ kept growing. My IQ was 147 in junior high. Last days I was in high school, my IQ was 167. I was tested again when I was going to college, went to Cerritos, 187 IQ. My IQ would just keep growing and growing. So when you start handling massive amounts of knowledge and data, you get smarter and smarter and smarter. So now my IQ, last time I checked, was 240, but it can float higher. You can overdrive yourself. Bet you didn't know that. No. But, yeah. So, or you can go out and work in the sun and take your beautiful, wonderful high IQ right down to a 70. Yeah, everybody will level up right the same. It works that way. So, yep, nothing like working in 122 degree heat, I'm telling you. Bad idea. No, so, yeah, basically, that gives a little bit of an insight as to what I was doing in the past and how do you do all this stuff and how you end up acquiring all of this stuff. And, it just, you acquire assets that are worth something, but there's not necessarily cash into the program. So it's a technique, it's a talent, and you find ways to immediately figure out the things that are in the huge batches of stuff that you purchase at auctions or whatever and get them to somebody who needs them. And of course you also get people who donate you stuff. You run into people where it's like, hey, you know what, we just got a whole bunch of this, why don't you just take this? So there was huge amounts of donations you'd end up with. And it's surprising how that would work out. People donate you stuff, and then all of a sudden you'd find stuff that you're like, hey, did you know that this was in there? Oh, no, we didn't know that. Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And so you'd end up finding things that were incredibly valuable as it would work out. But again, for some reason, there's a reason why people's strange, weird assets always end up going to charities and auctions because they're hard to liquidate. They're troublesome. And can you liquidate all these things? Yes, you can. When the economy is really, really good. When the economy is really, really good, everybody gets into collecting almost anything. And you just hook up with some kind of auction and you just pump it out the door. But that means the economy has to be running good. So you have to catch things just at the right time. Of course, if you're trying to manage getting things done at the right time, and then all of a sudden it's like the weird illegal stuff starts happening, people coming from outer space, it seems almost like, and it's like, your issue is what? Who are you? You know, and just ridiculousness, and this becomes very disruptive to your life, to have to be sidetracked with these other things, you know. And you know, I mean, there's, you know, different things. There's nothing like getting to the point where you basically have to have jobs where you turn them down, or basically you can't check out because somebody's electronically kidnapped you. They are liars. They are liars, and they are putting marks on your record that's not supposed to be there. I explained the yo-yo bit, how things go up and down with these people. You catch them red-handed and say, well, that's illegal. Oh, it is. Yeah, here, by the way, here's the legal violations. Like, you want to put these police officers in prison for 70 years? Well, look, this is the law. We don't want to do that. You know, the despicable gripe of these people. Despicable. You know, attack all these things, cause all these problems. Do you understand that I just shut down an entire run? You know, like 300 kids just lost their ultra cheap computer. Mommy and daddy can't buy them a really neat computer for 30, 40, 50 bucks because you are a beep, 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 beep. Yeah, that's who you are. You're a beep, 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 beep. So, you know, and these people don't want to be held accountable for their wrongdoing, you know, and the kind of problems that they make. You know, and you end up, you know, I got 17 different lawsuit stuff where these people owe me back money from legal money I had to spend, and they still don't want to pay their bill. You know, it's just despicable. You know, we have to start putting these people in prison for their actions. They'll never stop. You know, the great flaw of government that, we want to turn everything into a civil suit. Why? Oh, so you can stay in place and be criminals at large, not getting punished. That's exactly why. They settled out of court. Yeah, you left all the people who were criminals at large. You converted a criminal case into a civil situation, and then you didn't punish the people who needed to be punished. Those people should be in prison, but instead they're still working, running around creating victims. I'm sorry for getting on this soap wagon. I just feel this way, you know. I just see this as the truth, and part of the reason why we keep allowing government to get out of control and have all these different people pressuring, and then we end up with more and more people who want to reinvent the wheel because they're lazy, so they're going to invent a bunch of policies that are madness because they're too lazy to go to work, or they have no talent. No spark. There's nothing like getting leadership that has no spark, no vision, no forward movement, because all they're going to do is keep pulling out the books and changing the brackets. It's all going to be this emergency stopgap measure followed by another and another and another emergency stopgap measure. And that just really irks me. So, again, one of the great reasons to have an archive is to have catalyst material available for people to get smart, for people to be able to understand what kind of creativity is out there. And this is A to Z. It can be anything, to help people work with material. And unfortunately, our museums, our library systems do not work the way that they should work. There are constantly books that are missing. They're listed there, but they're not there. And then you check the other records and you go, this book's been missing for 7 years. Oh, it has. Yeah. Okay, that means that you need to buy another one. So that's kind of a hard thing that way. So I did all these diversified things. There's nothing like knowledge. You get bored. What do? Well, you go to the knowledge bank. Having an archive at your fingertips means high-speed access, no waiting. No waiting, none of this business, oh, the internet doesn't work. No. It's all at the fingertips, and it's faster. So I did a lot of different law studies off of the legal library, and, of course, that ended up law. So, I mean, when you end up building these things and, and converting them to something, you get them in the process. I was converting the law library going to drives for high-speed access. Then I was going to go to chips for even faster flash aspects. But those were like insanely expensive. At the time, that was like, nope, there was no way to do that. So I started inventing different types of AI systems that I figured, different types of systems that would have to be done, and ended up doing the math designs on this. Custom chips were required. So then you start looking at making custom chips. I'll spare you a little bit of the story. But it becomes nobody wanted to invest $1 billion. You walk up to somebody and you say, oh, yes, I need $1 billion in 2002 to basically assemble some of these custom chips to do certain custom research or build fast-acting systems. So then I thought I'd get clever and said, okay, look, what I'm going to do is buy older chips and modify them, and I'm going to have some custom chips flashed, and then I'm going to reassemble them on things that are like picnic table or larger sized items. The size of a 48-foot flatbed truck, and these are huge running long tables, and these are chips. So, but again, no, I couldn't get the money to finish the math out on that. That wouldn't stop me from occasionally chipping away on designs on stuff. But one of the interesting things is I guess I'm going to show some of the rough visualizations at some point along the way here. Maybe when I finish doing this, I might, if I run into them. Fastest computer design in the history of the world. And this is what I wanted to build many years back. This was like 2000, around 2000, of what I ideally wanted to do. And I'd keep chipping away at the design, and things would keep changing. There's versional designs that would keep changing. And like right now, there's a design to here now today with the technology. If I had the money, I could put 20,000 processors in one version. Not too bad. I could put 2 million processors. I could put 20 million processors. The most advanced end that we got, there's a method to do it. I could put 20 million processors into one computer. Basically, one system. And one of these days I will end up popping out if I run into the visuals on it. Accessing data can get really interesting when you get to the point when you're at archive levels. What I call archive levels, it's like even now, I've got, like 30 hard drives that are what I would use with a station, which is 1 to 3 computers, which used to be 7 computers. I used to use a 7-computer standing disk, and that was 2002 or so. And so I could run that many computers at the same time. So that's how, doing different things. You get efficient about when something needs time to do something, and you do something back and forth, and you're working materials different ways, and you swap it over from one system to another and rework the material again. Nothing like having a multi-pass-through system. I had visualizations where multi-depth, I had 7 depth screens, and each depth in the monitor was another whole computer going through it. So this was an interesting. It was interesting for doing special effects too. So I'm pulling my hair out when people are stealing my equipment and I don't have this advanced equipment, and it feels like I do a podcast and I feel like I'm playing with garbage, and it's sad because I have all this advanced equipment that keeps getting destroyed by these criminals that need to be punished, and they just they're all memeists doing a meme game. They're memeist meme game, and they just don't want to let people just go through life and do their own thing and walk up them and have something interesting or good to say, or don't say anything at all. So it's like there's a bunch of memeists that are looking around to find people to be their worshipers, and they don't even have ideas and solutions. They're not ready to go, and many of them have never actually really researched the spark of real answers, of real solutions. They don't know what it is. So here I am, the archiver that has way more experience researching all of these solutions and all these different things. But of course, these people are going to destroy the archives and then want to cover up their criminal activity. And there's a lot more to it, but you can't say arguments unless you can prove them. That's the way our system generally works. You don't say something unless you can prove it. So I've said a lot, and evidence comes out of my mouth, and I've showed the evidence. For over a year and a half, I've showed very heavy evidence of the violence. I've showed the documents, some of the key documents, that beyond the shadow of a doubt that these people shirked their duties. Deep constitutional violations. So as a presidential candidate, I've been working on many things on and off my whole life. The little things that I mentioned, how do the acquisitions is or that, that's like part of the hard work, but keeping the house up is different. Going to auctions is like mowing your lawn. You just have to do that. There's a schedule to it, Trimming your bushes and your trees and tending to this and that and taking care of different little aspect areas. Your archive is a big, huge house, and it has many, many facets. So you walk into a little tiny house, but in reality, you're stepping into a dimensional doorway, and it's like you just stepped into 45 castles because you got the stuff inside. So, the future has solutions, 24 hours, services. I've got a major educational fix. I'm going to have to talk about the major educational fix and how the archive worked to compare different types of educational opinions and different types of actual educational programs, teaching schedules, all these other different things, because you have all these high-end people out there that are available. So there's a lot of ways to change teaching in many ways and keep teaching, in my view, a faster paced constantly upgrade system. And a lot that has to be done with that, but that means you have to pay teachers more. That means you have to accommodate other things. That means you have to get teachers building their own houses in their off time and working with those different schedules, and a lot of notes on how to make all of that work, a completely brand new mass modeling system of how to make society work better. So that's part of the morning wake up. It's time for me to get something to eat because this is me before breakfast. My name is Michael Crosby. I'm running for president. And guess what? I'm happy today because my statistics are moving forward. My campaign's not running out of speed. My campaign is gaining speed. Hey, this is going to get interesting. Thank you much for your time. Have a good morning. Michael Crosby, running for POTUS.